Joining me to talk more about China's environmental efforts is Ranping Song. He is the Developing Country Climate Action Manager at the World Resources Institute in the 13th five-year plan. Lots of targets, lots of goals. I mean, that was all laid out. There's a lot to accomplish. But of course, one of the ones that just seems to be jumping off the page is the environment. And President Xi Jinping sat in on a panel discussion and said this, quote, "The ecological environment has irreplaceable value. We should treat it as it's our lifeline." Clearly, when the president of a country comes out, makes this statement, and we're seeing it front and center, everyone seems to be talking about it. Talk to me about the importance of the environment in the two sessions and your takeaway, since this is something that's very important to you.
Yeah, of course. I think that, one very concrete idea is that all this is all beyond talks, right? It's not about only making statements and just making that is very important and then without any follow-up actions. Actually, in the plan, you see very concrete number, quantified numbers that's checkable and manageable, that you'll be held people accountable. So if last 5 years is any lessons, that we see that there's going to be very concrete follow-throughs, actions, instruments to see how to carry out this number. So I think this is not only about one thing is that the realization how important it is, but also very importantly to realizing that how the government is actually acting on it rather than just talking about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. In fact, I wrote this down. There's a Chinese economist who said the economic goals in the draft are guiding targets, he said, but the environment goals are binding, which I think gets to the heart of this. What are some of the things that are coming out in terms of concrete efforts, not just talk, but as you said, just getting really tough on this, that really have struck you?
Well, a few things. One of the things is that this, they're, actually pretty ambitious goals, right? So some of the energy intensity goals and carbon intensity goals that's out there, that is we're actually driving, concrete actions. And there's actually new arenas of action, right? There was water there, air pollution. There's actually mandatory targets in air that was not there before, and there's actually new area of action for soil. So this is very new arena of actions, but all again they're all quantifiable and they're all measurable.
And you talked about action, but also at this news conference, the Chinese Minister of Environmental Protection talked a lot about the law. He talked about a new reform to ensure that there's effective law enforcement, because you can put the laws on the book, but you really need the people in the different communities. China's a very huge country to enforce it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the idea that government is in a turning point, understanding that itself will not be able to comprehensively enforce the law. So they're actually restructuring the management of the environmental bureaus, so it's more accountable, not only to the local governments, but actually have much more responsibility to taking care of the government. Also, they're mobilizing other parties like the NGOs and the public in general, in order to be reporting what's happening and then actually helping the government to enforce the laws.
They talked about clean coal. They talked about emission standards. How does that help bring down the temperature, so to speak?
Yeah, of course. Coal is one of the most pollution source of air and then climate change. So the way that if you can use it in a cleaner way, of course, then you consume less and then actually you emit much less. So that was the very idea that the best idea, of course, is avoid using it. And then if you could, then switch from using the dirty energy to a more clean energy. And then last, there's always things that you cannot reduce. You have to use anyway, then use it smartly in an efficient way. I think that was the essence of what we call clean coal use.
And it's interesting, the NPC meeting, it certainly seems as though they're hearing from the citizenry, because I know you moved here in August. Pollution's really a key topic of conversation with folks in China. They want something done about it, don't they?
Yes, I mean that was the key driver of both environment and climate actions in China. So people understanding this is actually some value hold dear to their hearts. So once they understanding it, and actually no turning back to the government. Actually, they have to move forward from now. There's no way to go backward.
Ranping Song, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.